Well, today's fans are pretty much everywhere now. And one thing that they do actually want is content 24/7. So I think we predominantly used to push out content, or people pushed out content around the sporting fixtures themselves. But now there's so many different platforms and technologies. Actually, fans want content 24/7 the whole time, and constantly want to be consuming content, typically on mobile and on the move. I think when you're creating content for fan engagement, the first thing is, what we've just touched on, is the fact that to build a comprehensive strategy around not just the fixtures, but always having an approach to always on content. So thinking about what content we can produce outside of the actual game time itself and the live events. That would be the first one. The second point is creating attention-grabbing content. So it's important to make you have catchy headlines, make the content interesting, but more importantly as well, invoke emotion within the person consuming the content, but take them on the journey to your ecosystem, take them back into your website or to perform an action. Also, I think the key thing is when you're pushing out video, it's important to capture their attention literally in the first 3 seconds. If you're using the sporting teams and the talent, put that front and centre up front. Don't leave it in the back end of the piece of content. But more importantly, just play more. Just test different pieces of content. I think thirdly, it's important to come up with different types of content. So you've got your hero pieces of content, which predominantly will be around maybe the event and the experience itself. But then you need to think about some hero and hygiene content. So hero being episodic in nature, maybe behind the scenes, and giving them access to something that they can't really get access to. And your hygiene is all about your simple principles of, I want to book a ticket, I want to buy a piece of merchandise, I want to enter into a competition. And then lastly, I just think it's about picking the right content stories. So what's the pre-game activity, but more importantly, I've mentioned behind the scenes, fans love that, and picking the right content stories, and maybe a bit of nostalgia, going back to historic clips and trying to tie that together. I think it's a bit of a difficult question because there's so many different platforms at the moment. I think the key thing, depending on which sport you're working with, you can actually do some behavioural analysis on where the fans actually live. So that's the first thing. We work with some clients and we say you don't have to be on every channel. You need to be on the channels that's appropriate to your audience. So firstly, I'll do some research and some insights. Secondly, think about the way they're consuming it. So, is that via Snapchat, Twitter for in-game moments, Facebook for live. So there's multiple different options. I think the first step is to actually do some research on your audiences and figure out where they actually are, and then making sure you produce the content native to that platform before pushing it out. Well, I think it's very simple. I think one of the key parts, that we discussed earlier, without fans there'd be no professional sport. So it's important to use a fan and make them part of your story. We don't live in a world now where the fan is passive, where a fan is just watching one game a week on a broadcast or live, listening to snippets on the radio or via traditional sort of newspapers or media. Fans now are constantly having a voice. They're constantly talking about the sport. They're actually creating content themselves. So I think it's important to engage with the fan and make them part of the story, and have the appropriate sort of technology to be able to enable that. I think is absolutely key. So just involve them as much as possible is the way to go.